Hello, magical practitioners of all types. Today we're going to be talking about poppets, and I am so excited because poppet magic is probably one of my favorite forms of witchcraft. It is a very old practice and it dates back hundreds of years and dare I say centuries. It is very, very old, and I'm really excited to share this knowledge with you and also kind of show you how I personally work with poppets. But we're going to talk about what poppets are, we're going to talk about some of their uses, why you might want to use them, and then how to get started working with poppets. So without further ado, let's begin. So you may see behind me my personal poppet, which I will show you a little bit later in this video, not my Athame, the poppet over here. But a poppet is essentially a doll used for magical purposes. It can either represent yourself or it can represent another person if you're wanting to do a spell for someone that you love, or you can also use it in baneful workings. So it's basically just a representative item of the subject of your spell. As I mentioned in the introduction, it is one of the oldest forms of magic. Using dolls in your practice dates back forever. From the ancient times of not really having much around you, you made a clay poppet, or you made one out of corn husk, or actually there's a tradition during Imbolc of actually making corn husk dolls for the goddess Brigid, or Breed in some Celtic traditions. But you can make dolls pretty much out of anything. It is sympathetic magic. So this type of magic is similar to, I did a money bowl way back when, and it's very similar to that. Money bowls, poppets, anything that has some sort of physical correspondence like this is going to be considered sympathetic magic. And what that means is that sympathetic magic is where you have a physical representation of whatever it is that you are trying to achieve, whether it's an intention, whether it's the subject of your spell, etc. There are physical correspondences in your spell that relate to that intention or that overall goal. And with sympathetic magic, if you are a believer in the law of attraction, not every witch works with the law of attraction, but it's kind of like the saying, like attracts like. When you have this physical representation of the thing that you desire, the thing that you are trying to do, you will attract like energies into your life, and that is how you end up manifesting your desires, is with those physical representations. So a lot of witchcraft is sympathetic magic. I won't say all, there are other forms that are not, but sympathetic magic is very, very popular within witchcraft, and that is what poppet magic is. As I mentioned previously, you can make dolls out of anything. You can make it out of candle wax or beeswax, which is really easy to melt in your hand and you can kind of mold it into a doll. You can make them out of corn husks. You can make them out of clay. You can make them out of fabric. You can crochet them, etc. And really the way that you make them is going to depend on what your overall goal is. Is this a long-term poppet? Therefore, you probably want to use a material like fabric or crochet that you want to keep for a long period of time, or is this a short-term poppet for maybe 1 or 2 spells that you're going to want to disintegrate afterwards, in which case you might want to go with clay or with beeswax or something that is easy to mold and you can get rid of it afterwards a lot easier. And sometimes people will make poppets specifically for the purpose of tearing them apart afterwards and or getting rid of negative energy or using it in baneful workings. So it really just depends on what your intention is, what type of material you are going to want to use for your poppet. Now, poppets get a really bad reputation because unfortunately with TV shows and movies, there is this image that comes to our mind when we see dolls used in witchcraft. There is this image of a doll with a bunch of pins stuck in it, and that those pins are meant to harm someone, you know, to like break their arm or break their leg. That is not true. Although you can use poppets in baneful workings, the pins don't even work like that actually. The pins, when you put a pin into a poppet, it's actually meant to direct energy and direct the focus of the spell to that particular area of the body. So let's say you're using this poppet to represent your partner, and let's say your partner has a broken foot and you really, really want to help heal that broken foot. What you would do is you would take your poppet, you would put a bunch of healing herbs on it, or you know, whatever correspondences that correspond to healing on the foot of that poppet, and then you can place a pin inside the poppet to direct that energy to the foot. That way the healing is not just going to the entire body, it's going to the foot. It's a similar idea to acupuncture, where they use the needles to direct energy in very specific ways. So it's similar to that, but unfortunately with Hollywood movies, TV shows, etc., they have made it out to be this big scary thing where people are sticking pins in poppets in order to hurt somebody, and that, although that technically can be used that way, that's probably a very, very small percentage of the population, and at least with the people that I know that work with poppets, we work with it very, very differently. So unfortunately, poppets have a really bad stigma, but they can be used to heal, they can be used to better a situation just as much as they can be used for baneful magic. It's like anything else in this world. There is some good, there is some bad. You pick your poison at that point. Let's talk about some of the ways that poppets are used and why you might want to start working with poppets. Poppets represent a focal point during the spell. So if you can't have that person physically there with you that you are trying to cast the spell on or for, or maybe you're casting a spell on yourself, it's really nice to have a physical representation of that person, especially when it's yourself, because when you're doing spells, it's hard to look at yourself, right? It's hard to focus on your own body at that point. So having a visual representation in front of your eyes that you can look at that has been bonded to you, there is a tag lock on it. We'll talk about tag locks a little bit later in this video, but it gives you that focus point during your meditations, your trance work, your spell, etc. And in my opinion, it makes the spell a lot more successful when you have those physical representations. Poppets are also great for self-care. So great for self-care. And this is primarily how I use poppets in my magical practice, because there is this psychological phenomena where most people treat other people better than they treat themselves, which is sad. If you think about how you talk to your friends and how you talk to your family members and people that you really love and care about, and how nice and kind you are to them, and then listen to yourself talk to yourself and how mean and critical you are to yourself. It's some weird thing that we have where we treat other people better than we treat ourselves. So having this physical representation forces you to nurture yourself in a way that you maybe weren't nurturing yourself beforehand. I like separating myself a bit and having this physical correspondence, this physical poppet in front of me. That way, as I nurture this doll, as I nurture this poppet, I am also nurturing myself. And I'm able to get a little bit of separation there. That way, I am treating myself just as good, if not better, than the people that I love around me, because that is so important for us to take care of ourselves. So I'm going to show you my poppet and just kind of give you a little quick walkthrough of what I like to do. So this is my poppet. Let me fix her hair. She's got crazy hair right now. And I even braided some of my own hair into her hair. She is made out of crochet because I want this to be a long-term poppet that I can use for self-care. Self-care obviously is huge in my magical practice. And then she also has a locket with my tag lock in it. And again, we'll talk about tag locks a little bit later in this video. But this is what she looks like. This is the material I chose because obviously I want something that's sustainable long-term. And yeah, she's gorgeous. I just got her maybe like a week, no, not a week, it's been a month or something like that. So I just started working with her, but what I like to do, if this is a poppet that you are using for self-care, I like to spend some time bonding with that poppet, even sleeping with it. Take some of your own hair, braid it into her hair, get your DNA all over that. Actually, you know what? Let's just dive into taglocks now. Taglocks are things that connect your spell work to your subject. So typically people would use hair, nail clippings, any other form of DNA can be used. You can even use the clothing from the person that you are trying to make this poppet for. So if you were gonna make it for someone else, you could use the fabric from one of their pieces of clothing to create the poppet, or you could just take that fabric and put it on the poppet. Either way, you can also add, so lockets are great because you can add a lot of stuff in there as far as tag locks go, but you can add in a bunch of stuff like a full name, a date of birth, anything else that is really going to link it to that person. That way this becomes a copy of that other person that you are attempting to work on. So yeah, when you start working with poppets, especially if it's one of yourself for self-care, I spend some time sleeping with it for at least a couple days and bonding with it, adding in my tag locks, you know, anything that I can do to really link this item to me. But let's move on to maybe some of the other ways that you can use poppets besides self-care. You can create a poppet in the shape of an animal. So if you have a pet that you are trying to heal, or you're wanting to do some sort of working on that pet, you can create a poppet for your dog or your cat, etc. You can also do it for love and romance within a relationship. So you can have a poppet representing you, you can have a poppet representing the other person, and then do your magical working around those two poppets together. And as I mentioned previously, you can also use it to heal certain parts of the body. So as I previously stated, if you have a broken foot or a broken arm or something, you're trying to help speed up the process, what you would want to do is surround it with herbs or healing remedies. And then if you choose to use pins, you can use a pin to stick into that poppet as a focal point for that energy. I personally don't do that in my magical practice because I have an aversion to pins. No, thank you. I don't want that anywhere near my practice because pins and needles freak me out. So that's not for me, and that's okay. But if that works for you, you can use it as a focal point. And again, you can use this in baneful magic as well. Whatever you can use to heal somebody, you can also use to hurt them. It really just depends on your magical practice. But I want to put a little note here about baneful magic. If you are trying to harm someone, and let's say you stick a pin in their arm, don't expect their arm to break the next day. That's not how it works. You would definitely want to stick the pin in and oh gosh, am I really advising on baneful magic right now? I guess I am. If you wanted to stick the pin in, expect some irritation to happen. It's not going to be like they break their arm. It's probably going to be like they stub their elbow, or they've got a skin rash there, or something that's a little bit more mild. If you I'm stopping myself there. just gonna let your imagination run wild with that, with the things that you can do, and I won't advise you further on that. That is up to your own creativity. So like I said, whatever you can use to heal, you can also use to hurt. Next subject. Okay, so you've gotten to the point where you maybe want to start working with Poppet Magic. You kind of have an idea of what you want to make the poppet for. How do you get started with Poppet Magic? The first thing that you're going to want to do, again to recap, is consider the material that you are using. If this is something that you want to be easily destroyed, if that's the whole purpose of the spell, or if you want something that's a little bit more long lasting, you have to consider the colors. What do the colors associate to, and how do you see those colors? You want to think about what you're stuffing inside of the doll. Do you want healing herbs in there, or do you want really irritating herbs in there? So you're going to want to pay attention to what herbs you have surrounding the poppet. And then of course you will need the tag lock. Again, this is something that links that poppet to the subject of your spell. So get some DNA, get the full name, date of birth, whatever you can to make that tag lock. And then we get into the part about activating your poppet. Some people like to activate their poppets, some people don't bother with it at all. The activation is kind of like, okay, you set this whole poppet up, now you're ready to bring it live. Some people will do this by baptizing their dolls if they have more of a religious background. Some people will do like a whole consecration ceremony, especially people that are interested in Wicca. This might be something that you might want to go for. For me personally, I don't do a quick activation. I like to let things slowly develop over time. I really like to let the bond create and build over long periods of time rather than just doing a quick activation. So for me, with my poppet, with using it for self-care and bonding it to me, I'm probably going to spend months bonding with this poppet, sleeping with it, spending time with it, putting my DNA all over it, letting that bond build in my psyche over time, rather than just doing a one and done ceremony and now it's activated. That is my own personal perspective on that. And again, some people don't do activations at all. They just add the DNA in and then immediately start working with the poppet. So it's totally up to you and your style of magic, however you want to do that. So now if you've gotten to the point where you've done some poppet magic, you are getting to the point where you want to get rid of your poppet, you're done working with it, what you're going to want to do is spend some time thanking that poppet for its assistance. It's really, really important here that you get closure. So you want to thank it for its assistance in your spell or your ritual, and then you want to cleanse all the parts of it, and you're going to want to slowly take it apart. So take off any herbs that you may have placed on it, take out the stuffing, cleansing if necessary. If this is a short-term doll, obviously, you're just gonna kind of want to take it apart bit by bit. If it is biodegradable, you could release it into a body of water and invoke the water element that way, or you can bury it in the earth somewhere sacred and special to you. Obviously, you know, make sure it's biodegradable. And if it's not, if it's one of those items that's not biodegradable, not reusable, after cleansing it fully, and you can do this with smoke cleansing, sound cleansing, however that looks like to you, you can throw it away essentially in a trash bin after all of that. I don't use disposable poppets so much anymore in my practice. If I'm going to use a poppet, it really is for the long term, because I enjoy long-term relationships with my tools, and I enjoy longer spells and rituals that happen over time rather than just like quick fix spells. My style has changed over the years. I used to be all about the quick spell. Now I am more about the long game. But again, that's totally your personal preference on that. And one more thing I wanted to say, if you wanted to get a doll like this, I'm going to throw in some shameless promotion here. My cousin made this for me, and she is fabulous. She's so talented with her crochet. So if you are interested in getting a poppet like this, I'm gonna put her email down below, and she can make it any color you want. She can stuff in whatever herbs you want. She's just so young and so sweet, and I love her so much. And if you're watching this, cousin, I love you, and I love this poppet so much. Thank you for making this for me. I just asked her to surprise me. I didn't know what color she was gonna pick out or anything. I just said, make me something good, and she did, and I love it. So anyways, if you're interested in a poppet like this, again, I'll link her stuff down below so you can get connected with her, because she can crochet pretty much anything. And yeah, I just love her, and I just want her to succeed in life because she's a bad bee, and I love you. So okay, I'm just talking to my camera right now in a room by myself, talking to my cousin that may or may not watch this video at some point. Anyways, Witchy family, that's all I had to say about poppets. I'm glad I got to share some of my personal practice with you as well. It makes it a little bit more meaningful for me too to share that stuff. So if you found this helpful, or if you have any questions, definitely feel free to comment them down below. I hope you have a blessed day, and I will see you in a video very soon. Bye.